Good morning and welcome to the SitRep for today, the 27th of October 2022. I'm Gads. This is Ragnarok Survival, and this is the SitRep situation report where we go through the stories from the past 24 hours and have a look at it and go scratch my head like some sort of shaved ape and go, what's happening? What is going on right now? Are you confused about what's going on in the world? I mean, confused to a certain extent. There's so many things that I look at and I'm just like, wow. I just want to throw my hands up in the air. But that's not what this is about. This isn't us giving up and saying it's all fucked. It's us going, hey, things are pretty screwed right now to a certain extent. How can we make it better? How can we make our own lives better? That's what we want to do. So, again, I just want to say thank you very much for joining me from wherever in the world you are. Give me a shout out where you are. Just write up roughly country. You don't have to put your address or anything. I'm not going to mail anything to you unless you want something. I might do a giveaway, actually. That's a thing that people do, right? Give away stuff. I've got a lot of stuff. I'm going to admit, I've got a lot of stuff. I might do a giveaway. 2,000? Does that sound good? I think I'm heading up towards there. 2,000 followers on the Instagrams, and I'm almost at 600 on YouTube. Which might sound like nothing to you guys, but like I'm blown away. Again, I started 3 people I was actually doing this for, and I knew them. So I'm always blown away that other people want to listen and get some sort of value out of what I'm talking about. So I really appreciate it. Where we got here, Blue Ridge Mountains, West Carolina, the Carolinas. Queenstown, New Zealand, one of my favorite parts of the world, definitely. Haven't been to the Blue Ridge Mountains, but next time I'm allowed to go into the US, I will endeavor to make my way out there. See if I can get onto the Appalachians, get out that area. Sydney, what is up in Sydney? Hunter Valley, also a nice part of the world. UK, lovely. Loving it, guys. Gang, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Let's jump into it, shall we? We've got the International Energy Agency, in fact, the executive director of the IEA. So this is obviously an international, a very large organization that looks at energy. And when we say energy, we're primarily got our heads stuck in fossil fuels at the moment. If you haven't seen the charts on this, by the way, if you think like everything's going to be okay, the world can get its energy from renewable sources, you're wrong. Since 2000, we've done a great job, and we have increased the amount of solar, the amount of a little bit hydro that we've done, and wind since 2000. So the last 20 years, cracking job. We've increased them from essentially zero to some. I think maybe 5% would be a pretty generous estimate at this point. However, natural gas, oil, coal, all have increased massively since then. So the fact that the other parts, the renewable sources have increased, yeah, that's something, but so have everything else, and much more than the renewable sources have. That's where it's at. Anyway, what's this dude got to say? Fatih Birol. Again, pronunciation, not my big thing. They had a bit of a conference down in Singapore, so they're in Southeast Asia. So log that in your mind here, because we're starting in our area of the world. The world, quote, still needs Russian oil to flow amid the first truly global energy crisis. So the IEA chief has come out and he said this, hey, look, we are in an international energy crisis right now, and we need Russian oil to flow. That's all there is to it. He's not talking to Europe here, okay? And that's what we've classically been involved in, is like all this European energy crisis. He's come out and said, I'm assuming it's a he, by the way. This person, Fatih, has come out and said, the chief has come out and said, look, we're in an international energy crisis now, and he's talking to Southeast Asia right now. That's us, gang. Peter, that's you and me. This is our neck of the woods. It's starting to get to our neck of the woods now. And I've talked about this in the past, that we don't live in the kind of world anymore where something happens over in Europe and go, oh, that sucks for Europe. Energy prices increase in Europe, in Germany, they increase here as well. Doesn't matter that the systems are not linked at all, or that, they are kind of linked, but not really linked. That doesn't matter. It's pricing, but actual supply is the issue here. So, this is what we're going to start feeling. The other part of it, Singapore, this is really close to home because guess where Australia gets its fuel from, gang? Singapore. This is the main refinery, one of the main refineries that we use, because we don't refine these products in Australia anymore. I think we've maybe got 2 that aren't working anywhere near capacity. And I know New Zealand at the moment now has 0 because you shut your last one down a couple of months ago and apparently filled it with concrete. So it could never be turned on, which stupefies me for starters, why you would do that. But now you're totally reliant on places like Singapore. And now you've got the IEA chief in Singapore saying, hey, guess what? You're going to need Russian oil. You're going to need it. These sanctions. Bad news. Yeah, Peter Rouse says, I'm going to touch on the diesel situation in the US because it's getting worse. US can be completely energy independent if they wanted to. They could be very close to it from the limited research that I've done and who I've talked to. The US is a net energy exporter, so it is very much a potential for them to become energy independent if they wanted to. New Zealand could. I'm 100% sure New Zealand could for a number of factors, but one of the main ones being that they've got a low population. So the amount of energy they could create per capita, I think New Zealand could do it. Australia, I think we could do it too. People might not like it. It's probably burning coal, but we could definitely do it. Take the Ride says it's time to buy bicycles with extra parts and tires that will not go flat. I think we really need to start thinking about these older technologies and how we're going to actually run our technologies in different ways. Peter Rouse says coal cars in Australia, that's doable. Gasifier systems, so gasifier systems, and these aren't like crazy technologies of the future. You can look at even parts of Europe, and I'm thinking like around the Bosnian crisis. Have a look at what they did. They cut cars in half and hitched horses to them to create wagons, makeshift wagons. They created gasifier systems for their cars where they burnt wood. Now, burning wood, here's a really interesting thing. I'm going to recommend a book. I know this is backwards, and I apologize. It's called The Knowledge. It's called it's called The Knowledge by Lewis Dartnell. Go grab yourself a coffee. That might be something I can send out, some books. Go grab yourself a copy of that, have a read through it, and figure out what wood can actually do. Because just burning wood doesn't just create heat. It's more than just heat, light, and cooking your food. All right, burning wood does a whole heap of other things. We can create charcoal from this system. We can actually create a number of chemicals out of that system too, if we do it correctly. So read that book, have a look at it, and start thinking about this sort of stuff. Another book I would recommend is The Ecotechnic Future by John Michael Greer. Check that book out as well, because that's going to talk about how we can start to delve back into some of our older technologies. His belief is that we might be going into a world which is post-industrialized. So we need to start thinking about these technologies that we have today, the technologies we had before the Industrial Revolution, and how we can maybe steampunk those together, for lack of a better word. They make then on Texas. I'm to the point. I want horses and a good bicycle. And this from Take the Ride in the US. I don't think that's a bad idea. This is certainly something I've been looking into. I've also been looking into e-bikes, e-bicycles, the more robust ones, the ones that, like I was thinking from a hunting perspective, can I zoom around on an e-bike hunting because they're low sound? I can move faster, and my knees, after years of punishment in military service, they're not holding up too well, gang. I'm not going to lie. my basketball game is my vertical leap is starting to go negative. Every time I try and take off, I just start moving downwards now. So I'm thinking about alternate ways that I can do that. Don't worry, I'm hitting the gym and I'm trying to do more squats and actually rebuild my knees and eat more collagen and drink more bone broth and stuff. That's the actual smart way to do it. But as a temporary measure too, my body's just not holding up to doing 30K walks anymore with packs on my back. So yeah, e-bikes might be something you want to look into, but anything you're looking into now, one thing I really would encourage you to do is start to think about repair mentality. How can I make things work? How can I repair stuff? Most of the shit that I'm looking at in front of me right now, I can't repair. I have no idea how to repair a Magic Mouse from Apple. No idea at all. LED lights, no idea. I could probably figure that one out. So I'm starting to think about that. What can I repair? What can I keep running? Older vehicles. I'm talking about pre-97 vehicles in Australia where we still got carburetors on them. I'm thinking about even 80s vehicles, maybe even 70s vehicles where the electronics are very much minimal. This is an idea that we need to start thinking about. It wasn't backwards on YouTube. I didn't realize that. That's cool. All right. Awesome. Yeah, Take the Ride said gasifer systems are great if you have something to burn. You need to actually burn something in them. Me personally, that's one reason why it's on my forefront of my mind, because I have a lot of wood around me that I can chop down and burn if need be. All right, so energy crisis. Let's log that one in our head. Start to think about that. China. Let's jump over to China now, and we'll talk about some financial system warnings. So China just had their I was about to call an election. I don't know what you fucking call it. Their reiteration, their rubber stamping of their government to continue on. And this has actually caused a bit of a ripple in their market and in world markets, where a lot of businesses are looking at this and going like, great, that's another, I guess, at least 5 years of the same or worse. So Xi Jinping now can continue on with his plan of what he's going to do, and that those plans don't look great for a free and open market. So because of that, we now got some quite large business entities within the Chinese space going, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure about this. We're starting to see movements happen here. I've talked about this before. China is a huge world market now, a player, and it is well bought into by everyone. Everyone. If China goes down, it is dragging us down with it. It's like a whale that all the countries have their harpoons in, and if it tanks, we're all going down there with it. That's the, like, there's no way out of that right now. So that's why I keep my eye on the Chinese market and what's happening there. Also, a couple other reasons. It is horrifically inflated. It is horrifically, what would you call it? Facaded. That they're putting out an image of what their market is. And like everyone knows, like that's not true. That cannot be true. Like at some point, China's going to have to do something to change that situation. So wealthy Chinese are starting to apparently activate their escape plans to get out of here. This is going to have effects short term on a number of things, possibly the crypto market, because that's going to be a good way for wealthy Chinese people to get money out of that system. Crypto. Coincidence? I don't know, but the crypto market is up. It's going up. Ethereum, Bitcoin, both up over the last 2 days. They're going for a run. Just to give you a scope of that too, Ethereum, I think, went from about 2,000 to this morning, I think it was at 2,400. So that's nothing to sneeze at. That's not like a 1% increase. You know, that's quite a large increase that we've seen. Not outside of the realm of possibility within crypto either. Don't start freaking out. But I mean, that kind of movement does happen in crypto. But it's interesting to see, and the correlation here to this as well. Gold as well. I think we'll start to see a buy up of gold, or more of a buy up. China historically has this huge fascination with gold. China, India, they buy gold on wholesale, like they love it. But I think we'll see more gold being pulled into the Chinese market, not necessarily from businesses, but from individuals now, household, domestic gold and silver buying up. The difference being here, though, and this is a story from Zero Hedge, which is quite fascinating. The difference being is, how do you move gold? How do you move gold outside of a country when it definitely comes up on an X-ray scanner? You can do that with crypto. All right, it can move, and no one knows. You can have it on a USB. You can even not have it on a USB. You can have the information in your head. So interesting stuff there from China. Anyway, let me just catch up on some comments here. Peter Rouse says, remember Trump was trying to get out of China, was being blocked at every step. Yes. It's just a funny thing. Like in the time, I'm not pro-Trump or anything. I'm like very kind of anti everyone when it comes to government. But it is interesting that there's a number of things that people look back on now, and it's like, Trump's an idiot, Trump's fool, Trump's doing this, Trump's doing that. And you look at it now and you're like, that was prescient, almost, what he was doing there. Greetings from Santa Monica in California. Since the US has not made any demands on Mexico, Mexico has stated they're going to keep buying from China anyways, which could be an interesting backdoor for the US market there. As we have seen in other markets, i.e. when we're looking at things like fuel and liquid natural gas, China buying that up and then selling it off to Europe, and Europe going, well, we just got it from China. Where'd it come from before that? Don't want to know. Don't want to know. It's not our problem. We're just getting it from China. That could be a way that US could possibly get stuff out of China if they're really going for the ban on China. Yeah. All right. So what else we got here? Here's some great news for Australia. We're still on track. We just dropped our budget from the new government. And the new government said we're still on track. So don't worry, don't freak out. We're still on track to have a $1 trillion debt by next year. So everything's normal. Okay. As per usual, which I really feel like you could just slap that line on the current government. Business as usual. Same as the other guys. No change. We just took the sign off that said Liberal, and we've got one that says Labor now. So we're making the change in Australia. Really no change at all. $1 trillion debt, not actually that huge of a deal when you consider our GDP and what debt is to GDP. We're one of the lower countries, well, not one of the lower countries in the world, but definitely within the developed world, within advanced, more richer countries, where we're kind of sitting in an okay space with that. But just interesting news that came up there, I thought. The other part of this, which is an actual quote, talking about the increase of gross debt, blah, blah, blah. It's due to higher borrowing costs due to higher interest rates. So again, this is very much what I think of Australia and Australia's government and the large part of the people within Australia. And I was actually having a really, really fascinating conversation with someone on Instagram just this morning before I jumped on this chat that kind of alluded to this sort of stuff as well. But it was about the vaccine and stuff like that. And I'll talk about it later. But it was basically, I said, hey, look, the way I see Australia and our government is very much victim mentality, very much who can we blame, not our fault, well, woe is me. So the fact that they're coming out and saying this is like, oh, hey, like the debt's going up, but it's because of, borrowing costs due to higher interest rates, blah, blah, blah. It's not our fault, not really our fault. That's the RBA, that's our central bank. We didn't have anything to do with it. Which if you even know the basics of how economics work and how governments fuck with shit and things like that, that's a lie. This is totally government driven. And, a large part of this is because of what we're feeling now is because of lockdowns and the slowdown in the economy. But the other part they actually pointed the finger at, an upward revision in the estimated costs of delivering the National Disability Insurance Scheme. And I thought, that's super interesting. was like, what does the NDIS have to do with this? The National Disability Insurance Scheme. Why are we factoring that in to be such a huge thing? Okay, so here's a fun little fact for you all, Australians, if you don't know this, if you haven't actually gone through and picked through our budgets and tried to understand this, because I did pick through the budget, the last one the one before the last one, because I was kind of had one of my more lefty friends going like, we spend too much on our defense and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't think we do spend that much on our defense. So I had a look into it, and lo and behold, we don't. What we do spend a lot more on is things like propping up other markets, subsidies for things like oil and gas and mining. Interesting. But where do we spend most of our money? It's on social services. It's on paying individual people, which I thought that's interesting. Do we have a huge problem here in Australia? That sounds very socialist to me. But that's where most of our money goes. I like National Disability Insurance Scheme. I think it's a good idea in principle. We do need mechanisms like this for people. Also, we need to encourage people to start to support themselves in these sorts of ways. And this is the kind of thing that can help people support themselves, get to that point. But I just thought it was really interesting that this in particular was thrown up, that this was named. National Disability Insurance Scheme was actually named as one of the schemes, one of the things, as part of this bigger sort of socialist or social security scheme within Australia. Why are they flagging that? That's the question I'm asking myself this morning. Why are you flagging that one of all of them? Or let's pull out the tinfoil hat this morning. Ding! Is this foreshadowing something? And this goes directly into the conversation that I was referencing before with one of the people on Instagram. I was talking about the New York judge that just came out and said, hey, guess what? You telling people, the New York government, telling people that they can't work because they didn't get... Well, that's unconstitutional and you're wrong. And they can all go back to work now. And here's the kicker. This is the part that actually lit up my day. It was like, and you can pay them back for that work lost. And I was like, oh, whew, snap. The question that was posed to me was, do you think this will happen in Australia? And I said, unfortunately, well, I didn't say unfortunately. I just said, no, I don't think it will happen in Australia because we're a victim mentality. I think our government would just say, oh, we didn't know. It wasn't our fault. Oh, we acted on what we thought we had, blah, blah, blah. All this kind of BS. Do I think that we should be paid back? And I say we as in if you're one of those people. Spoiler alert, I was. Do I think we should be paid back? Yes. Yes, I do. Do I think we will be? No, unfortunately, no. So, but National Disability Insurance Scheme. Why are they factoring a lot of money here? Again, tinfoil hat, maybe could have something to do with that. If you're putting two and two together here of what I'm saying, maybe the government will admit something. Or maybe they're preparing themselves for a lot of payouts due to something that they may have mandated. Let me just leave that one there for you to think about this morning. Whoa, there's a lot of comments. You guys are talking a lot here. Let me try and catch up. I've missed this homeless stuff. There's some talking about homeless stuff. A lot of homeless problems. We're talking about homeless problems in the US. I have had a number of people chat about this. You do see snippets of this on the news, but I'd love to know the experience of people. And I'm hoping you guys are putting something up about this if you're living in the US. What is your experience of homeless people within the US at the moment? Are you seeing a dramatic increase? Yeah, and Peter's saying zero homeless where I live in Queenstown. Homelessness isn't really a thing in Australia and New Zealand. I mean, it definitely is a thing. But don't want to mistake that. However, I will say this: with Australia, I believe we have so many systems in place that if people are homeless in Australia, it is, take a deep breath, it is by choice. Whoa. Don't freak out on me. It is by choice in that I understand that some people have some amount of mental disability or some issue that is going on that drives them into that sort of state. But there are so many mechanisms around that we shouldn't, by rights, have any homeless in Australia. That's my belief. Although if rent prices continue going up, that could be very different. Yeah, I saw a big problem in Sydney, and you're right, by choice, mental or drugs. That's what I think. And the statistics actually, last time I looked at them, which was a couple of years ago now, bear that out, that the number of people that have some issue with drugs and are homeless, the correlation between those two is huge. So, Jackson Ang says, the tent cities have become very large and include wood and metal as the homeless attempt to construct permanent shelters. Take the Ride says, I thought the numbers were higher for homeless people in Portland than Los Angeles. It wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. The police can't clear them out, so they stretch down the block sometimes for miles. That's 1.6 kilometers per mile for those of us who use the metric system. All right, let me continue on with the stories here. Let's jump into the EU now. EU is driving pole exit. What's that? Poland exiting the EU? Ooh. Okay, so Poland, if you haven't been following this, there's been a number of countries, and I always like to highlight these stories because we kind of think of the EU as this like homogenized zone that everyone agrees and everyone's like giving each other high fives and they're going to move together. Not that at all. Quite fractious, quite argumentative a lot of the time. Poland's been coming out saying a whole heap of things. One of the larger ones, at least to me, was them coming out and asking for repatriations from Germany, saying, hey, remember that World War II thing? Yeah, we want a couple of $1 trillion, thanks. Give it to us now. Debt's due right now. So we're seeing Poland sort of not quite fitting into the narrative of the EU. We're seeing it with a number of other countries, but Poland's probably one of the larger, more influential and key access points there. So this is an interesting story that's actually talking about how what Brussels and Berlin have been doing is actually driving this. And this goes on the back of what I was talking about with the Russia. When you push somebody to the outer, when you try and force them into that corner in order to get them to do what you want them to do, well, you kind of leave only one of two choices. They will either have to capitulate and do what you do, or they're going to go the exact opposite way. And that's kind of what's happening here with Poland at the moment in the EU. You're actually pushing them out of the EU, which is right now is a pretty crazy thing to do. They're pretty key. In fact, if you start to look at things like the amount of military forces that each country actually puts into NATO, I would really not want Poland on the outer of any organization I had. EU is different from NATO, I understand that, but when you start to push one out of one, you're going to push them out of the other. God, you guys are all over the comments. I'm not going to be keeping up with this. Still talking about this homeless thing here. It's bad stuff in the US, though, the homeless problem. Definitely. All right. What else is happening within Europe that shows me that there's a bit of fractious nature here? France v. Germany. Has that happened before? It has happened before. A little conflict called World War II. And a little conflict called World War One. And a number of other smaller wars that they've fought as well. Say smaller than world wars. French President Emmanuel Macron and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz have met and are talking at the moment because there's been a number of differences that they've been having. They're not seeing eye to eye at the moment at all. again, I just like to highlight these things. We think that the West is all, if you just look at the Western propaganda machine, i.e. mainstream media, you would believe that everything's cool, everything's hunky-dory, and we're forging forward and we're going to beat the evil Vladimir Putin. We will crush him. It's not happening. It's not happening. And I think a lot of this is actually being forced by what's happening with the energy crisis at the moment. Now, France, one thing that France has going for it at the moment, I mean, a number of things that France has going for it at the moment. One is that they went, hey, nuclear, we're going to continue using that. We're going to continue going down that path. Germany said, nein, nicht nuclear. And they're getting rid of the nuclear power plants. And even now, they're still doing it. In fact, they only just in the past couple of weeks said, whoa, actually, let's not shut our last 3 down. Let's just keep them going a little bit longer until we can figure out this issue. So they're in two very different positions here, these two countries, very different positions. Germany's obviously looking at a very cold, dark winter where things are going to hurt and prices are going through the roof in their country. And France can mitigate some of those circumstances by themselves. Because of that, they're making different decisions, or they want to make different decisions. So they're coming together to try and see eye to eye on some of these things, but they're way, way off on a lot of these things, on energy, on defense, on what's going on in the world. And how to bring the EU back together. So, again, just highlighting these sorts of things that are happening here. Italians are out in the streets. They're rallying against energy prices and inflation under the banner, you won't steal our future. Quote, we won't be your cash machines. What future will our children have? Good question to ask. Fantastic question to ask, and I can totally understand why Italians are hitting the streets and are worried about this. Unfortunately, you're about 10 years too late for this. It's already happened. You won't steal our future. It's gone. It's stolen. In 10 years' time, we're going to be, unless something drastic changes, unless there's something, some unknown piece of technology or fucking aliens land or something, or Elon Musk tears off his mask and goes, I was the android all along. I don't know where he had that accent. But, and goes, by the way, I'm already mining an asteroid and I've found this particular mineral called unobtainium, which is going to solve all our problems. Unless any of those things happen, in 10 years' time, we're going to be in a worse state than we are right now. Well, than we were 5 years ago, let me put it that way. It's already in the pipeline, and there's nothing stopping that right now. So, yeah. Argue about it all you want, protest about it all you want, but this is what's coming down the pipeline, unfortunately. Thanks, Jackson Ang. Thank you. Yeah, feel free to hit that like button. That's something that people say on videos all the time. Hit like and subscribe, and I always forget. I'm all about individual choice, guys. If you want to hit it, hit it. If you don't. There's plenty of things you could be doing with your time rather than listen to me. All right, just quickly, let's jump into Africa, the West blind spot, Kenya, place that I've been a number of times. Cows are starving. Kenya's in the grips of a huge drought at the moment. This is on top of all the shit that's going to come down the pipeline into Africa at the moment. Lack of food, this is just adding to exacerbating their situation. They're in drought as well now. This part particularly, though, this is one of the worst droughts they've had in decades. This part particularly frightens me. Kenyan farmers are calling on the government to come to their rescue as they lose their livestock to starvation. Oh, if you're having to ask the government to come to your rescue, it's already too late, as far as I'm concerned. We can't ask the government to help us out here. Well, we need to stop doing that. We need to actually think, all right, what else can we do? Let's stop relying on the government to be mummy, daddy / God in our situations. We're unable to feed our children, our livestock. We don't have anything. The Horn of Africa is facing one of its worst droughts in more than 4 decades, with over, wait for it, 20 million people involved in it. These are people that are going to be without water or food. Yep, lot of pain. And I keep talking about this. Like Africa is going to bear the brunt of what we're seeing now. They're going to bear the brunt of all this. For people listening on YouTube, I'm the only one that hits the like button. Thanks, Take the Ride. I appreciate it. But seriously though, if you're watching and you don't like it, don't hit the like button. That's your prerogative. Let's jump over to the US now and keep talking about droughts. Persistent drought conditions and high winds are creating dangerous harvest conditions for Missouri farmers. What else is highlighted here? 800 acres that burnt in this area as well. So they're in drought conditions in the US as well. What else is happening in the US? Let's talk about this fuel thing, Peter. Major fuel supplier is now on code red. This is in the southeast of the US, so the southeastern part of the US. Mansfield is moving to alert level 4. They're requesting a 72-hour notice for deliveries when possible to ensure that fuel and freight can be secured and at economical levels. Damn. It's getting dire within the US. They're going to have to start securing more diesel very quickly. Otherwise, I'm sorry, but Amazon next day delivery ain't happening. And if that's the summation of your worries right now, then you're in a pretty good position, my friend. Okay, this one was interesting. I talked about this, how there was a breaking of the ranks when it comes to the Russian problem, where I've been talking about this for a while, that sanctions, like if you've got a couple of brain cells in between your ears, you can see that the Russian sanctions are not working so well, and we need to find another way. Also, you can see that we're probably on the brink of nuclear war. We're probably closer to nuclear war than we ever have been in the history of the world. And what we need is to start thinking about other options than just pushing forward with this narrative of we will destroy Russia, we will beat them back. Maybe start suing for peace. So 30 Democrats came out and said, "Hey, look, we're breaking ranks, and we got to sue for peace here. We've got to start doing this." I said Norway's PM came out and said this. Look, we've got to start looking for peace. We need peaceful options here. We need to bring some other option onto the table rather than we will beat them. All right, that's not resolution. Okay, that's going to end badly. Well, they've been beaten down, you naughty Democrats. House Progressive withdraw Ukraine letter after backlash. So they pulled back that letter. They said, sorry, we're with you. We're 100% with you. We'd love to know what conversations went on behind the scenes there. Romanian defense minister resigns over comments on Ukraine needing to negotiate on war. So the Romanian defense minister came out and said, we have to negotiate here. Like, we need to start doing this now. Forced to resign. I'm expecting maybe a letter of resignation or a letter of apology from Norway's PM soon. What else we got? They want to add more ethanol to fuel now. Ethanol is bad for vehicles. Yeah, in case you didn't know that. Ethanol is not great for your vehicles, so they're putting more of it in there. It's bad. 30 Democrats, they came out just doing that for the midterm elections. Yeah, quite probably. A lot of the stuff that we're seeing at the moment is about midterm elections. Russia's Minister of Defense, who's been talking about this dirty bomb, and I've said this, has gone to the UN and said, hey, there's dirty bombs, has called up many of the individual countries within the EU area and said, hey, dirty bomb, can you help out? Everyone unanimously on the West is being like, no, we're not listening to you. So now he's turned to India and China to do it. You know, he's just, I think he's just like putting the word out there to try and maybe lay the groundwork for false flag or something. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but one of the interesting things here is, okay, I'm really looking at what China and India are actually going to come back and say. case you don't know, Russia, India, China are part of a formal alliance based on economic grounds. Here, this is about military grounds. So that's why I'm interested in this. That's why I'm like, okay, what do China and India come out and say about this? I will be interested to see that. Anyway, it doesn't matter because nuclear war, the problem's been solved. It's been solved. Biden, he solved it. Firstly, step one, get your updated vaccination. That's all you need to do. All right. That's going to save you from hurricanes and nuclear war. Joe Biden's told it. Well, he hasn't told us, but this is the subtext of this, because during his I don't know, is it monthly now? Booster. He's come out and said it would be a serious mistake. A reporter said, "What do you reckon about Russians using tactical nuclear weapons?" And he said, "It's a serious mistake. I'm getting my vax here. Serious mistake. Going to come after you." All right. They wouldn't. This is a warning to the Russians. And like, I can actually hear Vladimir Putin shaking in his boots right now. So Biden's laid down the law, y'all. World's a safer place now. World's a much safer place because of vaccines and Biden warning people. I thought I'd throw this one at the end. It amuses me. I'll put it that way. I find this clown show getting funnier and funnier, but also at the same time getting more and more disturbing, thinking about the stakes that we're playing with right now. You just got to look at this stuff and go like, what's going on? This is also part of the schizophrenic reporting we're getting from the governments, from our media as well. Continue to get your boosters, guys. Hurricanes won't hurt you as long as you get your booster. And then on the other side of it, we're seeing more and more admissions of the side effects, of the injuries that are coming out of these sorts of things. So be informed, make your own decisions. That's all I can say. I really don't care. I really don't care what you do. I honestly don't. It's up to you. Just as long as you make your own decision to do it and you are informed when you do it. That's what we've got to encourage, I believe. Katy Perry had her last performance in Las Vegas. She is V'd and her right eye would not stay open for the last part of her last show. It's on YouTube. I was watching this video and I was like, what's going on here? Your Katy Perry robot's malfunctioning. It reminded me of, I know you guys had it in the US. We only had like one version of this in Australia in the 80s, where you had these restaurants you'd go to as a kid, and it had these automated like furry animal things that were like, I can't even remember what it was called. And it was only there for like 30 seconds in Australia. I went to it like a couple of times when I was real young, and then they shut them down. But that's what it reminded me of. It's a small world after all. Anyway, that's it for today, gang. Thank you very much for joining me. I really appreciate it. Funny stuff going on in the world at the moment, hey? But as always, the reason we're doing this, the reason we get on here and jump up and down and talk about this shit. Well, I don't jump up and down and talk about this shit, but the reason we talk about this stuff is that so we can encourage each other to be more prepared for the future. Whatever it is. I see on the comments right now, Peter Rouse says, I buy 1,000 liters at a time. Talking about fuel, talking about diesel. This is sort of stuff. I mean, I'm not going to be able to drop 1,000 liters. I don't have the capacity right now to store 1,000 liters, maybe 700, I think, but definitely not 1,000. But if you can do that, then like this sort of stuff and seeing that other people do it, seeing that other people are preparing, we can look at that. And I get this sometimes. People go, oh, yeah, but you've been preparing for years. Oh, my God. Can you hear my dog at the back door? I've been preparing, yeah, Gads, you've been preparing for years. So you got this sorted. But what about me? I've only just started. Hey, in some ways, I've only just started too. You're never prepared. You're never at that point, I don't believe, that you're like, bang, 100% prepared. But it's about encouraging each other. It's about talking about our stories, telling each other what we've done, telling each other what's worked and what has not worked for us. putting this information out there and showing ourselves, because for years, I have been that weird guy where I haven't talked about prepping at all. I haven't wanted to talk about it because people go, oh, that's a bit like fear mongering, isn't it? And now, one of the benefits of having a worldwide pandemic was that people switched onto this a little bit, and we're all starting to switch onto it a little bit more, and we're starting to normalize it a little bit. And this is the sort of thing that should be normalized. Okay, not weirdo pedophiles in our school system. Don't normalize that. That's not normal. Normalize people being prepared, self-reliant, and responsible human beings. Normalize people wanting to take responsibility for their own lives and not be helpless victims. That's the sort of shit that we want to normalize. So, whoa, a UK radio DJ dropped dead on the air a few days ago? Man. Damn. That's horrible. All right, gang. That's what I'm going to leave you with today. Be inspired. Be inspired by somebody, by Peter buying 1,000 liters of diesel. 8 liters, $8 a gallon here. Yeah. Man, that's high, isn't it? But anyway, do what you can. Buy what you can. If you can only get an extra jerry of fuel, go out and do that. Seek out where it's cheaper and buy it where it's cheaper. There are places that you can still get cheaper fuel. It hit $2.45 in my local town here. All right, that's what it's at today. Ouch. $2.45 a litre. That's too much. But it ain't going down anytime soon. All right, so that's what we've got to deal with. All right, gang, if you've got any questions, as always, shoot them through to me. I just want to say again, I really appreciate every single one of you who jump on here, put comments. YouTubers have been going off this morning. I love it. Keep it up. Keep up the good work. Keep up the good fight. Just keep prepping, all right? We are going to be the people that stand up when things start getting worse. That's how we got to think about it. Thanks, guys. Stay safe out there. Stay prepped. Semper Paratus.